Pacific coast in the Tohoku region. The speed of the wave and also the vast disaster area also were beyond people's expectations. What created such major tsunami waves? The experts say that there were many things that they did not expect and assume when they planned beforehand. At the University of Tokyo Earthquake Research Institute, Professor Takashi Furumura researches tsunami waves and also earthquakes using seismic wave and other data. This is the Yokohama Stadium during the earthquake. Quakes were felt 300 kilometers away from the focus in the Tokyo metropolitan area. These are seismic waves observed at the Tokyo University. You can see the waves that continue for a very long time, and the amplitude is very large. The strong quake that continued for a long time shows the characteristics of the big earthquake. The 1995 Great Hanshin Awaji earthquake. In intensity 7 on the Japanese scale of 0 to 7, a quake was registered and it continued for over 15 seconds. Comparing the seismic waves of the two earthquakes tells us that the recent earthquake continued 20 times longer than the Great Hanshin Awaji earthquake. Why did such a horrible quake continue for over a long period? Off the Tohoku coast lies the Pacific Plate, and it subducts under the Japanese archipelago. And when this happens, the plate on the land side is pulled by the Pacific Plate, creating a strain. In this earthquake, the strain was so large that it was no longer able to hold the strain, and the plate jumped up. And the plate's movement spread from the focus at a speed of 3 kilometers per second. And the impact could have spread over an area stretching 200 kilometers by 500 kilometers, and that is why we have this 5-minute-long quake. Professor Furumura says that this was the biggest earthquake probably ever recorded in the history of Japan. The focus was in the area off the Miyagi coast. It is said that an earthquake would hit in a cycle of 30 to 40 years. The last major earthquake occurred 33 years ago in 1978. It was a magnitude 7.4 earthquake which caused reinforced concrete buildings to collapse and oil tanks to rupture. 28 people died in this earthquake. When will the next big earthquake hit? From about 10 years ago, the government has asked experts to try to predict the next big quake. According to a report by the experts, they said that there is a 99% probability of a large-scale earthquake hitting in the next 30 years. The yellow part shows where the government expected where the focus would be. That would be the area the government expected the plate to jump up. However, in this earthquake, the plate jumped up over a very large area, that stretches from around the Iwate Prefecture area to Miyagi Prefecture. The seabed may have heaved over several meters over a 500 kilometers stretch from north to south, and that lifted up the water, and that water advanced toward the land as a tsunami. Professor Furumura says that from Iwate to the north and Fukushima to the south, maybe it would have stretched over to Ibaraki. And the magnitude, which was expected to be about 7.5, in the end registered a magnitude 9.0. And the energy of the quake was 80 to 90 times larger than was initially expected. Great tsunamis hit the Pacific coast of Japan right after the earthquake. And in Taro district of Iwate Prefecture, the water jumped over the 10-meter tall protective wall. And the Soma district of Fukushima Prefecture saw the waters rushing toward them faster than expected. Many of the tidal gauges were damaged because of the massive tsunamis, and therefore not much data has been gathered. Professor Furumura is trying to analyze what happened to the fault in order to recreate what happened with the tsunami. He is using simulation to see what happened. With the plate jumping up over a 500-kilometer span, water was displaced and a huge wall of water came toward the land. And as a result, along the Sanriku coast, in the inlets and the coves, the tsunami amplified, creating big waves. In the Soma area in Fukushima Prefecture, tsunamis approached around the same time, and it was contained within the Bay area and continued to hit again and again within the Bay. The tsunamis were really high, and it's not just that, but it continued. The cycle of the tsunami was also very long. The first heave, the peak that you saw in the graph, it took about 30 minutes for that peak to lower. And it means that it took that much time for this, the wall of water to be created. And it means that massive amounts of water really gushed into the city area and swept away houses and buildings and structures. And the structures now were smashed into debris. And then when these tides recede, this would also be very fast, and debris will be swept away. Maybe vessels also will be swept away. And also oil that leaked out from ruptured tanks would be swept away by the wave. So it's not just the tsunami height, but the time and also the debris caused all these damages. Now, you said that this may be a massive earthquake that hits only once in a millennium. What do you mean by this? Well, in the Tohoku area, we have continued this research, and we know as a fact from history that in 869, according to a historical book, there was a big earthquake of this scale. Back then, 1,000 people died because of this earthquake. And this historical fact told us that there were these accumulated sand that tells us about the big tsunami back then in a 5-kilometer inland area from the coast. This 869 earthquake This is more than 1,000 years ago. We only know bits and pieces of what happened during this earthquake. This is the third night since the massive earthquake hit, and we are